Hey folks, and welcome to the Pipnotic Symposium on the 18th of August 2023. Today we're just going to run through a ton of pairs and have fun doing so. Okay, so we're gonna talk really briefly about the process as well. I've been using the dashboard a lot because I think it's just a really nice, simple tool that can be used in order to gain like a really quick overview over what's going on the broader side of the market, and I like that. It's kind of a one-glance thing, but there are also people who don't use the dashboard, and they're chart goers, and so today we'll stick to the charts, and we'll just use a histogram with it, which essentially is the same stuff. Okay, so I mean, using this information that we know from the dashboard, we'll just be looking at more in a more maybe a nerdy, hands-on fashion. So I hope that's okay. So just before we get started, I'm just going to tell you about the setup that I have today. We have 3 different time frames: the daily, 4-hour, and the hourly. I have the histogram below these two to the right, and on this one here I have 2 instances of the GFX indicator. The thick one is, I think it's 100 periods, and the thin one is less. If I can click on it, where are you? There it is. It's 20. Okay, so the thicker one is showing me the overarching trend for that time frame based on more data, and the other one is just showing us much quicker information based on only 20 periods of currency strength data. Okay, and what I'm doing here, you see we have the currency strength information also running on this chart and the one to the right, and this is just the 100 period, just to make sure. Where are you? Come on. Why can't I grab it? Just go like this. GFX. This is just 100 periods, okay? So this is 100 periods here and 100 periods there. And it's just showing us some really cool stuff about the underlying strength of the currencies. And this is the euro crossed with the Hungarian currency. And so we don't have the HUF in there because it's not really being traded with much else, so it doesn't really make sense using that. So that's what we can see here. That's my setup here. Okay, old trade. I think this one expired. Okay, and so I mean, what I do is I just start from one end and I go through the other. What I could do is I could use a dashboard and only focus on assets that are looking for selling on the 4-hour or the daily chart, or I can do it this way, and either one is pretty quick. So what I'm doing, I'm just dragging these over like so. So I'll start from the top, and I go one at a time like so, and we'll just do that. We'll just discuss some ideas. So if we go back to this one here, here, so we have a couple of areas that are visible, and I'm looking at quite a small bit of data. If we look at the number of, we have 100 bars visible on this chart, which isn't a lot, but because I can see what's going on the daily and the 4-hour, I'm seeing actually a lot more. So even though that it looks like this on the 1-hour, you can see this price structure here is exactly the same as this price structure over here. So price goes up, down, goes up, down, up, down. Okay, so you get the smaller version, and then here over on the daily chart, it just looks like 1 bar or a couple of bars at most. Okay, and so it's a really beautiful way to kind of do an X-ray of these daily candles and get the 4-hour perspective and the 1-hour perspective, because an area of, for example, this little 1-hour area of demand that price is currently sitting on, you can't even see here. Okay, but you can see that this would not be a terribly bad idea to take a short-term trade there, because we have a very strong price run, and you can see that prices went high, we came back down, so we rebalanced this price inefficiency, we accumulated, we went north, we came down, we revisited that reference point, and so now we left, and now we're just inefficiently moving lower to try and find some bids. Okay, and that's what we're currently seeing here. So we had the 4-hour pattern, which is here, which has been tested, and the 1-hour pattern here, which has been tested once and now twice. We have a bit of divergence as price kind of took a bit of a deeper stab into that zone. But notice how these areas hold. When we had this one here, price went down to it, and we got at least a 2 to 1 out of that one there. This one here, price is still sitting on it. We had this one just here, price came down to it, and then we had at least I don't know, maybe 7 to 1 or whatever. Then we have this hourly chart here. Okay, price is currently sitting on it. Okay, and so this is the good thing about looking at less data, less bars, is that you're forcing yourself to focus on one of the things that I think is pretty fundamental, and that is this stuff, maximum bar count. Okay, so we are focusing our attention on the last 100 hours. Okay, for the hourly chart, or 100 days for the daily chart. And the good thing about focusing on less data is that we're taking the sentiment into consideration, which is something that I think is super important. Because I've had some, I was trying to short the euro and the American dollar cross with the South African rand, but it kept going, so I burned my fingers a couple of times, and so now I've just got to wait. And instead of trying to pick the top there, I could have been buying the whole time, because some lovely areas of demand were created below price, and then I could have started to sell once I started to lose some of my long positions. But yeah, we're all still learning. Okay, so that's what we have there. Let's move to the American dollar cross with the Czech currency here. Let's see what pops up. And so here you can see that, and we are visiting some very high reference points on the daily chart. This is a sell zone, hugely price sensitive sell zone. Look at the first time price got there, we went down to the base of this massive move, and now price tested it, and now we're kind of sitting on it. We can't see the details of it just yet, but you can see that the prices are kind of sticking to this area. Okay, on the 4-hour chart, we're seeing something quite similar, where we are visiting this area. We had a few tests to it that you can see here, and now prices are kind of sitting on it. And so the question is, well, do I dare to buy? And the answer is, well, depends. Depends if you think that this area would hold. But looking at this area here, just here, this is the hourly one, you can see that, yes, it's a beautifully formed area. We had a nice departure just here, the buy zone's established, and we have, let me zoom in a little bit so I can kind of talk about this properly. Excuse me. So we have this zone right here, which is nice. It's got everything going for it. We have the buy zone, we have the departure. Okay, and then we have we have clarity, we have chaos. Okay, so you want to be selling above the chaos and buying below the chaos. Okay, so I like it for a short-term trade today that I would probably get into and out of within a very short order, but I wouldn't buy this and expect it to go to the moon. It could do, but based on the fact that we've already traded here historically, you can see just here we had this area tested, prices went through it, we revisited the parent child, it went to the child once, twice, went through it to the parent, went back to the parent. Okay, and so now we've kind of traded this area out a little bit. And if you look at this as one piece of price, it looks like this. Okay, so this is chaos. Okay, this is a piece of chaos. This is a macro a concept of play here, where you can see the tiny piece of chaos on here. Okay, but you can also see that this tiny piece of chaos is in fact a tiny piece of chaos in a larger price structure. Okay, so what would you do in a situation like that? Well, then you would have to maybe zoom out a little bit and take a look at the bigger picture. But yes, you could certainly take a short-term trade here, but I'd manage it quite carefully because of what we're talking about here. We do have chaos here. We do have price sensitivity below this area of value here. So prices could react at the upside and the lower side of this sideways trading period, as you can see just here. Okay, so A few things to look at, also considering the fact that we're deeply in the sell zone. Okay, look at that. The histogram is screaming short now. We're starting to turn here on the histogram on the 4-hour chart. So I'm guessing that the better trade was to sell here when price came up to it. When this was happening, when we were up on the hourly and the 4-hour chart, we just saw a really nice pattern. Prices emerged. Boom, we departed. So selling here and anticipating a continued price movement lower to rebalance this and whatnot, because we have not yet visited the highs. If we would have moved above here and gone up here, then I would have been quite nervous if I was a short trader, because I would expect prices to maybe have another run a little bit higher, because this is what they have to do. They have to essentially seek the liquidity necessary in order to bring prices lower. Okay, anyway, enough about that. So let's have a look here on the pound Aussie. Just going to move through a few different ones here. So the pound Aussie, gosh, we're standing on a very tall price inefficiency. 1 for daily. So looking at this one here, the daily chart. I mean, sorry, in this little gray squiggly line, it's just a thing I've been playing around with. I can just remove it so it's not such a distraction. There we are. And so looking at this, I mean, prices are just continuing to wriggle north. Okay, and we are, in fact, moving into very, very premium prices at a time when we've completed a cycle. Here we had a cycle. Oh, wasn't a very pretty line. And if you look at where these go, these line up beautifully to the tops and the bottoms of these price structures. So what's going to happen now? We don't know, but historically, what happens when we reach these zones like this, when prices normally retreat and start to move lower. Okay, so I would prepare myself maybe to sell this pair, keeping an eye on the major fundamentals, because this can of course affect what's happening. But I'd be pretty keen on looking to short this, and kind of watch as prices slowly begin to kind of rebalance as we begin this bearish cycle that you can see has it's at the very almost the premature early end of this cycle. Okay, so let's move on. Let's have a look at the Aussie franc. Because the Aussie franc is kind of doing something different. Of course, we have the pound Aussie, the Aussie franc. So the pound Aussie, we're very tall, meaning a very weak Australian dollar. And here we are very low because of that same weak Australian dollar. And you can already see we're starting to shift. You can see that the currency strength update, but you can see that we're seeing a bit of a shift on the shorter time frames, which is corresponding to what we can see here on the longer time frame. Sorry, this is the weekly. Let me turn this to the daily. Okay, so we would expect prices to eventually begin to move higher and begin to rebalance this and maybe revisit some of these historical price points here, for example. Okay, so maybe a slow meander higher from here, and you can see that's already started to happen, where we moved lower, we moved into maybe into a buy zone on the daily chart, and we retreated. We almost moved to the 50% point, but we fell short at this price structure. Prices came back to the origin, and now we're having another attempt. And this little chart, this candle right here is telling us to look onto the smaller time frame. So if we took this down to a smaller time frame, you can probably see, so here you can see we had a huge price surge lower. Prices really went quite far down there inefficiently. So of course they're going to rebalance, and prices are going to rebalance that price inefficiency, and so prices are slowly wriggling up and away from here. But you can't really see the details of any potential zones on that time frame. Let's have a look. Here you have that kind of that messy price surge, gapping lower. This is a very early Asia. Okay, that's where I am. And then price slowly starts to wake up during Asia and trades slightly more efficiently, well, more or less, before it finally jumped up a little while ago. But looking at this, I mean, we do have, what you want to do here is you want to find those prices. Let me zoom out so I've got more data. The price kind of moved around like a pivot, a price pivot, I call them. We got one here where prices kind of came down, away. We gapped through, we kind of came up. And then we popped through it. It's difficult to use that tool. Sideways, departure, slingshot, buy zone, price poked into it. We had another go a little bit deeper, and then we ran higher. Okay, so this area right around here, it could be interesting. Buy zones established, not yet tested. This is a 1 minute chart pattern, so who knows, anything goes on the 1 minute chart. But looking at this, this could be maybe an interesting place to begin to scale in, considering the fact that we're already starting to see a decoupling between the prices of the Australian dollar versus the Swiss franc and the underlying value, which is what we can see here in the histogram. So the currency strength. Okay, so we're seeing the Australian dollar begin to attract flows, and the Swiss franc is shedding some flows, and that's what you're seeing here when you can see these dots here. Okay. All right, so that was that. Let's keep going. Let's go to the Australian dollar and New Zealand, which it looks quite different because the Aussie and the Kiwi they trade. I sort they behave in a similar way sometimes, but if you look at this, we have these big swings, boom, like this, big swings. So we're almost like in this, maybe in a monthly, yeah, okay, I was going to say, we are sitting in a monthly chaos, like a bunch of chaos. And so if you look at this, here we've got the area, prices are accumulating or distributing, we don't know. We're looking pretty more strong than weak, I'd say, but we're retreating from these price points. We went out of the box, we came back, out of the box, came back, out of the box, came back. So what is that? What's happening? What's happening when you can see this? Well, what's happening is that we're seeing prices seek liquidity. What we're seeing is essentially prices are trying to dip into the other end of the book, the bottom of the book. Okay, this is a monthly chart. I mean, huge flows are available here, and so there's huge quantities of liquidity down here and also up here. But I'm thinking because prices are quite low, like so, we have the book that looks more or less something like that, where we have lots of buying liquidity here, less as you go higher, lots of selling up here, and less as you go lower. Because we're so low in the book, for this price structure from this origin all the way down to this level here, I mean, we are quite low in that book, and so we've had a lot of heavy selling. Prices sitting sideways, doing what? Are we accumulating, or are we distributing in an attempt to move this currency pair lower? We don't know. If we had more data, which we don't have, then maybe we could answer that question. But for the time being, you can see that we have some strong impulsive kind of pushes higher that are telling us that maybe there's a bit of strength in the Australian dollar relative to the Kiwi dollar. Okay, and so we could go down to the smaller time frame. That was a really big time frame, and visit some of these areas. and I'm not really seeing it there on the daily, but I want to try and find these. Yeah, this one I like here. Actually, I'm just going to use this one so I can continue to use. See, I like this one here. This is just like that, visiting an area and then departing. Okay, and then we established the buy zone here. Prices got deeper and deeper and deeper. We tested it once, twice, 3 times. Prices went through it, and then we snapped back. Look what happened the first time price came to it. We have a huge wick, and it kind of shocked the market because there was such an imbalance, and prices kind of stabilized. It was absorbed into the market, and then we had another go, and prices snapped back. Okay, we went just below the zone, and prices completely exploded north. This is the weekly chart, so this is huge. This is a huge multi-week rally here, and then prices stabilized. And so if we dissect this a little bit, you can see we have the price run, and then we have kind of like like resting, kind of figuring out what's going on, like recovering from that shock. We have another one, and prices leave, and then we kind of do the same thing. So this happens all the time. We have another go, and then price stabilizes a bit, and then we start to see prices run higher from here. Okay, so prices come down, we snap back, and we kind of start to stabilize. So now we're in this we're stabilizing state, moving sideways. You can see that we have a buy zone here and here. There's probably something in here that could be interesting. We can take a look at, but that seems to be holding price for the time being. But you can see how prices went down here, and we snapped back, and there's probably a little pattern in here somewhere that would make me quite comfortable buying if prices got below just here. But this is not, it hasn't yet happened. We can try and take a look and see if we can spot it. Yes, so this is that price pattern here. Price came down, and we have the test, the poke into liquidity, a big shock, and then we have a stabilization, a period of stabilization, where we start to form these patterns. Okay, so instead of kind of dipping into the thick end of the book and then price snapping back, we see some decent absorption also from the sell side here. So prices came up, and then we stabilized. We formed this base, this parent. Prices went up. We formed this child, and then we left. Okay, and so everything kind of starts from here. So if prices come down to this area again in the not so distant future, I would be super happy getting my feet wet there, which is below this low, which I like. And so this would be a potentially interesting spot to begin to buy, but this could take a very, very long time to happen. We don't know. For the time being, we've got the same things happening here. We have this little area that was established the buy zone just here. Price came down, we gapped into it, we snapped higher. Same thing here, stabilization, so chaos. Price comes down, stabilize, we leave, we come down, we move sideways, we slowly start to form this base, a really nice base. Test an area, test an area, test an area. Finally, we move through it. We consume the liquidity available in this area here. We move higher, we move sideways here just a little bit, where prices stabilize a little bit after this inefficient price run, and then price begins to rebalance. And then, yeah, we can see what happens. You can see that they often trade next to each other like this. They often do this, the Aussie and the Kiwi, unless we have some economic data releases that cause these pairs to diverge, or one of them to diverge from the other. But for the time being, we have this. Okay, so if we look on an hourly chart, make sure on the hourly, yeah, we could start to look at the wicks. Okay, because wicks are telling us they're pointing to the edge of liquidity. So we have something here. We have something here. We have a really good one here. And then below that, we've got these here. So these could all be areas that you would trade shorter term. Okay, this one was nice, a big gap below, and then price snapped higher. Actually, we opened here, we came here, we came down to here, historical buy zone, and then we came up. Inefficient, rebalance, we poked into it, and now we're leaving. We're not going to necessarily leave forever. We're going to probably keep revisiting the bottom of the book until the balance in supply and demand becomes offset, either to the advantage of demand, buyers or supply the sellers. Okay, and that hasn't happened yet. But we could look at this here. We could play this little zone here. We could play this little zone here, which is a nice little zone, and obviously the one just below here. So there are lots of options there. Okay, let's jump to another pair. Let's do something a little bit more. Look at the euro rand. Let's see how we're going here. Okay, so we finally had price rally, and then we left. We moved away from it. This is very interesting because when you have, let me see if it's clearer. No, it's not clear. Keep it on this time frame. When you have a period of sideways price movement, prices are happily trading within the range like they were here as well. Okay, and then prices all of a sudden break out at a time when on the daily time frame we're super tall. Then there's a very high likelihood that this is a liquidity exploration pattern, looking for liquidity, grabbing for the orders at the top of the book, which will often result in this. And price stabilizes, and we start to break down as we're doing now. Okay, so we're starting to see that now. So this could be the place where, if I was a little bit more patient, I should have start to trade. And you can see that we had this little area here. It was tested, worked out nicely, tested, and now it's gone. And so you go back to the old rule. We have an area of demand. It is no longer valid. What area of supply removed it? Well, I'm guessing somewhere around here. Difficult to see because there's not a lot of detail, but if we go to the 50-minute chart, we can probably find it. So these are the tests into the area just here. This is the pullback into the area that removed it. You can't really see. So we go, I think, the 5-minute chart or something. No, okay, so we simply revisited this price structure here. Just going to do the big swings. Back of it, and then we go like so. So that's all that happens. So we simply did this. Okay, and prices began to break down. Okay, so that was a very interesting one, but also notice that we do have price inefficiency here, and so this might not be a terribly bad place to take a shorter term trade, and we could play that very widespread, very widespread, because we are out of session for South Africa. So I don't know who's sitting on rand liquidity, but it's very widespread for the time being at least, and so it might be a little bit expensive time to do that. But I'll watch this certainly and see what happens, because you can see this is a very sticky area. Then again, it was also out of session, so it doesn't really count for much. But yeah, so we'll have to wait and see. So this zone was created in a very illiquid time of the day, which makes it less interesting to trade as well. Okay, let's have a look at one more. Let's do the Kiwi American dollar. Okay, so the Kiwi American dollar. We're starting to do this on the 4-hour. We've been doing it for a while. We're super low in the book on a daily, and we're starting to do this. Brup, 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 boom. I didn't even see this. This is this morning for me in Asia. I was on my motorbike taking my boys to school, I think, so I didn't see this. But this is a really nice example of kind of like a shakeout pattern at the end of a move, kind of dumping some liquidity on the floor by running through the lows. Shorter term traders, they are, they're putting their stops in very predictable areas down here. So the banks will run price lower. Okay, they'll run price lower to grab this liquidity. Okay, then they buy it all up, which then they show their hand, which shows us the direction they're looking to trade, And this position to drive price lower, this is still potentially open, or some of it is, and so they did not have the opportunity to square that position up. So they sell again. They close all their positions at roughly the same area here, and then the real buying begins, and you can kind of see that starting to happen just now. So that's kind of an interesting pattern. I like that one quite a lot. Yeah, so that's what we have there. If we're looking on the major time frames, yeah, we're super retail now. We have this. Prices are dipping through. Okay, and we're reacting to, we have a parent reacting at the child just here, and we poked into that. Now we're having a small reaction into a price inefficiency that you can see just here. So that could be a nice shorter term trade for the day as price rebounds. There's no supply to stop price here, so prices could easily move through this until it reaches some kind of a historical reference point, which will likely be somewhere in here. So this will probably slow prices down a little bit. Well, at least this one would. Here. Okay. Good. Well, I'm gonna leave it at that for now. If you have any questions, please do let me know. If you haven't if you're using buy and sell zones and you haven't yet grabbed it, grab a hold of it. And there's a lot of new code in there, so if you experience any bugs, please do let me know. And thank you for your patience. There's a lot of new stuff that went in there. We have the two different modes, mode 2 and mode 3, which is pretty cool. So essentially, if I just tell you what mode 2 is, would have been really nice here, where it would have sold the entry here, the stop above here, and it would have sold just here. Okay, and then we have a different one, which is mode 3, which would have sold here when this pattern was closed. Let me draw that. When this bar closed, it would have sold. The target would have been here, and the stop would have been here. Okay, so it would have sold, price goes up, stabilize, and we start to break down. Okay, and then we have another one here. The same pattern that was used here would have worked beautifully here. We would have sold here. Target, stop, price blasted through it. Yeah, so those are the two ones. We have break-even stops as well now. So when you have, for example, if you have an entry here, this is your target, and your stop is here. Let's say in the default configuration, once price reaches 50% of its way to the target, is 0.5 in the configuration, it'll trigger the algo to take this and move it up to the break-even. And so now, I just have to redraw that. Here's the target, the stop is at break-even, and price is here, halfway there. So now if price comes back, no big deal. We have zero risk in that trade, which is quite nice. So a couple of exciting things there. So if you haven't downloaded it, grab it. It's version 1.777. And there was a small thing I found that I fixed yesterday, and I put that into the 1777 build as well. So this is the one you need. If you downloaded it yesterday morning, then I would download it again. About the time I sent out that email is when I made that update. So if you grab the 177 early in the day, yesterday Asia time, then maybe you should download the new version. I think that fix will help you out. Good. Been rambling for a long time. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.